This is a stimulus update and daily news report. Got some big breaking news to share with you. Schumer and Manchin just came up with a new reconciliation deal. Manchin is on board. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act. I'll give you more details on that, plus reactions from other Republican and Democratic lawmakers. GDP report just came out. Looks like we might be in a recession, and the Fed has just raised the interest rates 0.75%. I'll let you know how that could affect your daily life. Senate has just passed a new bill that got bipartisan support, and I'll let you know the deadline for those $500 monthly checks coming up, and I'll give you some other more important updates as well. Hope you're having a terrific Thursday. If you appreciate the fact-based, fast-paced updates, hit the like button down below, and I'm picking the winners for the $200 checks today, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so stay tuned for that video coming out. If you haven't signed up already to win the $200 check, you still have a little bit of time before 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, so details down in the description below if you want to sign up for that. Let's get into the news. Man, when it rains, it pours. Ton of news to cover. So U.S. economy just had a second quarter of negative growth. Is it in a recession? Well, the White House has sort of changed the guidelines of what is a recession, what is not a recession. So economy shrank 0.9%, marking second straight contraction and raising recession worries. So in the history of the United States, anytime there were two quarters where the GDP was negative, where there was no growth, then usually we had a recession. So is it going to be a recession? We're waiting for that official announcement. If it is, not looking good. Either way, it's not looking good there. I'll keep you more updated on that as more news comes out later on. And Schumer and Manchin announce a deal on reconciliation bill, tax, climate, and energy provisions. So Senator Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and Senator Joe Manchin announced that they have struck a deal on legislation that aims to reform the tax code, fight climate change, and cut healthcare costs. This is huge news. Never would have thought that this was going to happen. I thought for sure Manchin was stringing them along this whole time. The reconciliation bill would invest more than $400 billion over 10 years to be fully paid for by closing tax loopholes on the richest Americans and corporations. And it would reduce deficits by $300 billion over the decade. And the senators said, citing estimates from nonpartisan congressional tax and budget offices. Take a look at this video clip right here explaining a little more.
We have a bit of news from Capitol Hill. For some, it might be a year overdue for Democrats, but it's not the deal that they had been wishing for, even the one they thought they might get a month ago. Senator Joe Manchin has reached a deal with Chuck Schumer on a reconciliation bill. So what was once the Build Back Better bill that was going to make a huge impact potentially with climate is now going to be called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022. It is not a sweeping bill. It will not change the way government works. Manchin says it will simply dedicate hundreds of billions to deficit reduction. It will raise some taxes on certain corporations. He says it will deal with energy, healthcare, and the tax code. And, of course, that would impact climate as well. But on all of these deals, I think we all should wait until you see it all actually happen and we see the details, what they've actually agreed to versus what's in the press releases. But whatever negotiating was happening, apparently that stuff is over, and they're starting to put some pen to paper.
So what are your thoughts on that? It looks like the deal might be going through. It's still not official yet unless it is voted on. So Joe Manchin has said this in the past, but this is probably the closest it's been in a year where Joe Manchin actually said yes and they're writing out the bill. So pretty big deal. What do you think about that? I'll let you know what lawmakers think about it as lawmakers react to Manchin and Schumer agree on reconciliation deal. Republicans calling it Build Back Broke. So go over some of the Republican perspective here. This is nowhere near the $3.5 trillion, and it doesn't really have as many stimulus provisions in it. But Senator Marsha Blackburn says Build Back Broke is going to bankrupt America. Mitch McConnell said Democrats have already crushed American families with historic inflation. Now they want to pile on giant tax hikes that will hammer workers and kill many thousands of American jobs. And yeah, things go on and on. Obviously not saying anything nice about it. So, but let's hear the Democratic perspective on this from Senator Elizabeth Warren and how this is a good thing. Take a look at what Senator Warren has to say about it.
Joining us now is Massachusetts Senator Elizabeth Warren. Senator, thank you for being on the show tonight. Let me
It's
start
good
by
to see
asking you. Good to see you, too. Let me start by asking you what you make of this seemingly major deal announced by Senators Schumer and Manchin. Because, A, did you even know about this deal prior to today? And B, is Charlie finally going to get the football?
Well, I certainly hope that Charlie's going to get the football. And think about what this is about. It's called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, as you rightly identify. Good naming there. But that is exactly what it does. So when you take a look at the climate part, for example, the climate part is absolutely about attacking the climate crisis head on. But large parts of it are about how to bring down costs for families all across the country, how to reduce the costs of their utility bills every month, how to make their homes more energy efficient, how to have more access to cheaper, cleaner energy. So it's about bringing down costs. And then look at the part on healthcare. The part about reducing the cost of prescription drugs because the government is going to negotiate, putting a cap for Medicare recipients that says you never have to spend more than $2,000 a year on prescription drugs, and expanding coverage of health care to many people who don't have it right now. And then look at the third part, and that is how it's paid for. It's paid for by saying to giant corporations that have more than $1 billion in profits, you're going to have to pay a 15% minimum tax on your book profits, not after you've fiddled around with the IRS and all the loopholes that you lobbied in. Your book profits. This is serious. And in addition to that, there's going to be the carried interest loophole is going to be tightened. We're going to save money on the drugs. I just want you to look at the three pieces together. And ultimately that last one
the carried interest,
on taxes,
can I jump in on the carried interest?
Please, of course.
We know that Senator Kyrsten Sinema, your colleague from Arizona, was not last year a big fan of that. In fact, explicitly opposed to the carried interest rule. She's not been a big fan of lowering prescription drug costs, at least not in recent years. How do we know that she's not going to throw a spanner in the works? What's your message to Senator Sinema tonight?
Look, I'm not doing predictions about any of my colleagues. I'm talking about what makes this a bill that helps reduce inflation, and on the part about taxes, that if we can get this through, it not only pays for the climate portion and the health care portion, but it also has hundreds of billions of dollars left over to actually reduce the national debt. This is a bill that truly is about fighting inflation, bringing down costs for families, and putting the country on a sounder economic footing.
So you've described this bill, as Manchin and Schumer has, as anti-inflationary. The Fed has been doing its own anti-inflationary activities this week. You warned that Jerome Powell shouldn't raise rates again, but he did today, another historic rise. How worried are you now at the prospect of an interest rate rise-induced recession in the coming weeks or months?
I'm very worried. And the reason I'm worried is that using the one tool that the Fed has, which is to raise interest rates, and using it aggressively to pound on this economy when it doesn't address many of the costs that families are feeling directly, is not a way to help families out and will not address some of the biggest drivers of inflation. In fact, just a few weeks ago, Fed Chair Powell was in the banking committee. We were in a hearing, and I asked him whether or not increasing interest rates was going to help with fuel prices. And he said no. Well, is it going to help with food prices? And he said no.
Yeah.
We have to remember the causes of inflation right now. We've got supply chain problems. Increasing interest rates isn't going to help with that. We still have COVID outbreaks all around the world, and that stops supplies. not going to help.
So what would you
that.
do instead, Senator?
So I would do many of the things the Biden administration is doing right now, and I want to give full credit. They are working to try to get COVID under control all around the world. They are working to untangle the supply chains. They're attacking these giant corporations, attacking the problem of price gouging with these giant corporations. And they're doing what they can to bring down fuel prices, including releasing oil from the Strategic Oil Reserve. And that's an approach that says we understand what the problem is, and we're going to do the things that will attack that directly. Between that and Congress doing its part, if we can go forward on the Inflation Reduction Act of 2022, I think this is good for our country, not just in the short term, but also the long term.
So where do you stand on this Inflation Reduction Act? Is this a good idea, bad idea? Should there be more stimulus provisions in it? There might be, especially with a recession just about to be announced. I still don't know if we're actually in a recession or it has to be officially announced. We'll see. But should there be more recession relief checks? Let me know your thoughts on that. Speaking of more checks, fourth stimulus check update 2022, deadline to claim $500 in direct payments from $1.2 million pot fast approaching. Do you qualify? So this is a 12-month guaranteed income pilot program paying $6,000 to 200 residents in Mount Vernon, New York. It's going to be $500 per month for the entire year. And the deadline for that is August 5th at 11:59 p.m. So if you live in Mount Vernon, New York, and you want universal basic income, don't forget about that. And the Senate passes bipartisan bill investing $52 billion in U.S. semiconductor production. So this was that big $50 billion bill. Democrats, or those who are for it, it's actually bipartisan, so those who are for it are saying that this is going to help out the U.S. economy, help out national security. Those who are against it are saying that these billion-dollar companies are getting more money, and this money should be used for people in America. But yeah, so those are both sides of that. It passed the Senate, still has to go through the House, which most likely will happen. And then federal interest rates hike rate by 0.75 percentage points for second consecutive time to fight inflation. So Federal Reserve on yesterday enacted its second consecutive 0.75 percentage point interest rate increase, taking its benchmark rate to a range of 2.25 to 2.5%. Chair Jerome Powell said there will be a point where the Fed starts to slow hikes to assess their impact. We actually think we need a period of growth potential in order to create some slack. So what does this mean for our everyday life? If the interest rate is going up by 0.75 percentage points, how does this affect us on a daily basis? Take a look at this video clip right here explaining more.
Stephanie, 3/4 of a point, what we were expecting, but the big question people have is how immediate could the impact be? What are we going to see?
Well, it's the impact on what? On mortgage rates, on credit cards. That impact can be immediate. Listen, if you are borrowing, if you're looking to borrow money, it is going to cost you more. So it's really difficult because when they raise interest rates, it's going to cause short-term pain. It makes it more expensive to borrow with the hope that in the long term, they're going to cool the economy and get prices to lower. But Chris, it's a complicated situation because when people keep trying to say it's a good economy or a bad economy, you can't. It's a complicated one because we have very low unemployment. We have strong job growth. And for people who can afford it, household savings is up and we continue to be out there spending. So when there is high demand, businesses are less inclined to lower prices. The question is now, with this additional rate hike, are you going to see things start to cool? The Fed certainly hopes so.
What are your thoughts on that? Let me know down in the comments below. Do you plan on borrowing any money anytime soon? Although if you're not personally borrowing any money, everything else is just going to get more expensive because the cost for borrowing money for businesses, it's all just going to get passed down to consumers. So things might get a little bit more expensive in general. Plus a recession on top of that, man. Things are getting crazy. To hopefully brighten your day a bit, here's my daughter Bella's tip of the day.
Oh, hi guys, I didn't see you there. Hi guys, this is Bill. Today I want to tell you something what you should really do. You should always be kind, and if you want to do something very happy, then do it. Like today I'm going to be making popsicles, and I'm going to be doing it with you. So what the first step is, get some milk. You can do cow milk or oat milk. Anyway, yeah, and you just have to take these out.
Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget about those $200 checks. You still have until 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today to sign up. Details of how you could do so down in the description below. And hopefully you have a great rest of your day. If you want to check out any of my other videos on my other channels, you could click up here. And I'll see you in the next video. Take care, be safe. Thank you for watching.